In a world full of noise, where social feeds are carefully curated and people react before they reflect, there's another way to live. A quieter way, one that doesn't chase attention but moves with purpose, rooted in presence and quiet confidence. To move in silence isn't to disappear, it's to stay grounded, to trust yourself enough not to explain, prove, or perform. It's a steady kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need an audience. In this video, I'm sharing what it really means to move in silence with quiet confidence and why the only validation that truly matters is the kind that comes from within. You'll also catch a glimpse of the peaceful beauty just east of Sacramento in the Sierra Foothills along the winding towns of Highway 49. The gentle rhythm of the weekend I spent in a tiny home on a quiet farm, the perfect backdrop for this conversation. I've watched a lot of videos on both the subjects of moving in silence and quiet confidence, but I've never really seen the two topics merged into one video. I think they complement each other very well. Not that long ago, I was a pretty open book. For years, I had a personal finance blog where I got real about my life and finances. I also shared goals, struggles, and other vulnerable thoughts on my social media platforms. But I never really once took the time to examine my motives for doing so. I don't think there was one specific moment or reason when things began to shift for me, when I started wanting to keep details of my personal life more private online. But I definitely remember times when I'd post a goal or vision on social media, only to not follow through with it. And there's actually a very scientific reason behind that. According to Psychology Today, when we publicize our goal intentions and others acknowledge the awesomeness of such potential changes, we get our dopamine reward all at once. The more others admire our goals, the more dopamine rush we get, and the less likely we are to execute the future necessary actions to implement them. Therefore, we deplete our feel-good gas, keeping us from reaching our final destination, our goal. Furthermore, publicizing our intention to succeed gives us a premature sense of completedness. It signals the brain to move on. If the brain believes you have reached your goal, it might inhibit the specific brain circuits related to further pursuing this goal. I've watched many a YouTuber create videos about how they plan to overhaul their life in 6 months and then lay out a plan on how they'll accomplish their goal. Cut to 6 months later, and very little has been accomplished. Compare that to someone who has actually changed their life in 6 months, and then shows how they actually accomplished that goal. I once hired a business coach, and we were very much at odds about whether publicizing your goals was a good idea or not. She said I should do it so people would hold me accountable, and that someone in my network could actually help me reach those goals. Now, I'm almost positive that has worked for some people, but it definitely hasn't been the case for me. Usually, it very much backfires, and I'm left feeling a little guilty that I didn't accomplish what I set out to do. I deeply believe in the value of integrity, and I felt like I was letting myself down as well as other people. You know, the girl who cried wolf. Another reason I keep things private is because people may not be in your corner. When you share your goals publicly, not everyone will cheer you on. Some people, consciously or not, see your ambition through the lens of their own insecurities or unmet aspirations. If you're reaching for something they once wanted but didn't pursue, or if your growth threatens their sense of stability or self-worth, they may subtly root against you. That is called upward comparison. Your striving highlights where they feel they've fallen short. Others might compare downward. They're used to seeing you in a certain light, accessible, familiar, maybe even less accomplished than they are. Watching you aim higher can challenge their identity or sense of superiority. Your goals force them to confront the idea things might shift, and not everyone welcomes that, especially if it makes them question their own purpose or identity. This doesn't mean you should keep everything private, but it does mean discernment is powerful. Protecting your goals while they're still forming gives them space to grow, without unnecessary noise or distortion from others' projections. Let your actions speak first. But one of the biggest reasons I wanted to move in silence was because I started questioning my own need for external validation. And this wasn't just telling people my goals and plans, it extended to posting anything at all. I truly believe that 99%, okay, I'll be generous and say 90%, of what we post on social media is because we want people to like, comment, heart it, clap for us, etc. I started to get really curious each time I went to post something, thinking, what is the outcome I want to achieve with this post? Was it to inform? Was I trying to show off my video work in hopes of making connections so I could get more freelance work? Was I trying to make someone laugh? Or was it vanity? Was I secretly hoping someone would think, damn, this girl really has her life together? Or wow, she does such fun things and has so many social plans and friends? Or even, she went through something really challenging. I feel sorry for her, or gosh, I feel really bad for her. The latter puts me straight into victim mentality, and don't get me started on how much I hate victim mentality. Not gonna lie, I've posted all of the above before, but those latter reasons, the ones tied to vanity or ego, started giving me the major ick. Not just in my own content, but when I noticed it in other people who constantly overshare private details online. As you know, once it's out there, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. It can look like constant updates, emotional disclosures to strangers, or broadcasting every new goal, pivot, or setback. At first glance, it might seem like openness or vulnerability, but often it's a way of asking the world, do you see me? Do you approve? Am I enough? The internet rewards visibility, and when someone feels uncertain inside, that attention can become a substitute for real grounding. The likes, comments, and dopamine hits can temporarily soothe deeper feelings of insecurity, loneliness, or self-doubt. But it doesn't last. And the relationships we have online are often parasocial, and when the feedback slows down or turns critical, the emotional crash can be intense because your sense of self was being propped up by other people's reactions. Oversharing for validation also blurs boundaries. You start putting things out there not because they're ready to be shared, but because you're hoping someone will reflect back a version of you that feels worthy. But that kind of reflection is fragile. It changes with the algorithm, with the mood of the crowd, with timing and tone. It's also risky because it creates a distorted relationship with privacy and self-respect. The more you rely on public response to feel okay, the more vulnerable you become to manipulation, misunderstanding, and emotional burnout. You give away your power in exchange for a moment of reassurance. It can feel like emotional whiplash. One moment you're high from the admiration, the next someone knocks you off your pedestal with a mean comment or not supporting you. Your mood is dependent on something outside of you, and you give up your internal locus of control. This is why I've chosen the path to move in silence. Now, I've seen a lot of videos about going ghost mode or disappearing for 6 months or a year, mostly from male YouTubers, interestingly, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about. I believe human connection, real, in-person connection, is vital to our happiness and well-being, and it's suffered greatly since the rise of social media and amplified during COVID. Having a trusted group of close friends is still essential. You need people to bounce ideas off of, to vent to, and to lean on. But when it comes to your dreams and decisions, not everyone needs a front row seat. Moving in silence is a powerful practice, especially in a world that constantly urges us to share, explain, and prove. When you move in silence, you're not hiding. You're conserving. You're protecting your vision from noise, distortion, and premature judgment. You're allowing it to take root and grow in its own time without being exposed to the harsh element of other people's opinions, doubts, or projections. Silence keeps your energy directed inward, where real transformation happens. You learn to trust yourself. You ignore trends and create your own North Star. When you're not broadcasting every step, you're more present with the process. You're less tempted to perform for approval or adjust your path based on feedback that was never meant to shape you in the first place. There's also strategy in silence. When no one knows what you're building, they can't interfere. They can't discourage you, mimic your path, or steer you off course. You remain unpredictable, focused, and untouchable in a world obsessed with instant visibility and instant gratification. People can't sabotage what they don't see coming. Silence is also confidence. It says, I don't need to be validated to keep going. It trusts timing, trusts self, and trusts that what is meant to be revealed will reveal itself when it's strong enough to stand on its own. Moving in silence isn't about secrecy for secrecy's sake. It's about discernment. It's about knowing the difference between what needs to be shared and what needs to be sacred. In a loud, often chaotic, unhinged world, silence is its own kind of rebellion and its own kind of power. I want to clarify something, though, that is important. Being silent doesn't mean burying your head in the sand or turning a blind eye to what's happening, especially during this heated political climate in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. Silence in this context isn't about apathy, it's about discernment. It's knowing that you don't have to comment on everything to care, and you don't have to shout to make an impact. It's about picking and choosing your battles with intention instead of being pulled into every outrage cycle, every emotional spiral, or every performative post. It's about being proactive, not reactive. Honestly, this is something I'm struggling with right now. I want to protect my peace and seek joy and beauty wherever I can, but at the same time, I'm deeply angry with what I'm seeing in the world. There's this constant tension between wanting to stay soft and wanting to scream. But moving in silence to me is about learning to hold both. It's about staying grounded while still taking meaningful action. It's like putting your oxygen mask on first, not out of selfishness, but because you can't fight for what matters if you're too depleted to stand. You're not checked out, you're just not leaking energy in all directions. You're conserving it, so when you do show up, you're rooted, ready, and clear. And in times like these, that kind of presence is not passive. It's powerful. Moving in silence requires one big component, I believe, and that's the subject of the second half of this video, and that is having confidence. Not just confidence, but quiet confidence. Confidence and quiet confidence are similar at their core, but expressed very differently. Confidence is often outward-facing. It's visible, vocal, and sometimes bold. It says, I can do this, and I'll show you. Thriving on expression, performance, and sometimes recognition. Confidence can also cross that line into cockiness and arrogance and can lead to everyone's favorite type of post, humble bragging. Quiet confidence, however, is inward-rooted. It's calm, grounded, and doesn't seek validation. It doesn't need to announce itself or prove anything. It holds power in stillness, moves with intention, and lets action speak louder than words. While traditional confidence may draw strength from external praise or achievement, quiet confidence is self-sustained. It knows its worth whether or not anyone else sees it. One is the fire that draws attention, the other is the steady flame that never wavers. Since we talked a lot about social media, how many of you have ever seen posts where people are bragging about, well, anything really? Hey, I think every once in a while it's totally fine to boast that your kid got into Harvard, or you ran a marathon, or you landed that dream job. Nothing wrong with that. But you know those people who constantly brag about one thing after another. It gets old. And honestly, it starts to scream insecurity. A red flag starts waving that they may not be all they claim to be, and I start to lose trust in their credibility. Think of those finance bros who are always bragging about their multi-million-dollar business. It's cringy. It's not motivational. It's just straight up cringe. So it got me wondering about when and how I was doing this myself. Again, not judging myself too harshly, but just examining my motivations on a deeper level. Seeing if there was a way to find that validation within myself. Who was I if I wasn't getting hearts and likes? Did I still feel proud of myself? Did I still feel worthy? To be honest, I'd gotten so accustomed to that validation that the silence of not posting and getting feedback was at first a little deafening. It's almost like, do I even exist as a human if everyone doesn't know my thoughts, moves, what I'm eating, who I'm hanging out with, and accomplishments? This is also why I hate engaging in online debate, especially anything political. It's full of people who will not back down from their opinions come hell or high water. They need to, quote unquote, win online in a game where absolutely no one really wins. They clap back and scream louder to feel heard when their thoughts are falling on deaf ears. I had to examine what would it mean to me if I didn't have to prove to anyone that I'm either right or worthy. What emotions come up if I simply do not engage or respond? This one really tested me, especially with certain family members. I started practicing it day by day. I affirmed my worth privately. I made moves without broadcasting them. I let people underestimate me and stayed unbothered. I paid attention to moments where I wanted to seek validation and asked myself, is this for me or is this to be seen and understood? I sat with my discomfort instead of trying to soothe it with attention. I learned to let silence be part of my power. A lot of this work comes with the practice of detachment, something that, like quiet confidence, is an easy concept to grasp, but can be very hard to practice. Practicing detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you care wisely. It's about loosening your emotional grip on things you can't control and reclaiming your energy. And don't we all need some good energy these days? Instead of absorbing everything around you, you begin to observe with a kind of calm neutrality. When someone's mood, opinion, or approval starts to impact how you feel, pause and ask yourself, is this mine to carry? That's where detachment begins, with awareness, with recognizing the moments where you're too entangled in things that were never yours in the first place. I think there's a quote out there somewhere that says, just because someone throws you the ball, it doesn't mean you have to catch it. One of the biggest shifts is learning to separate your identity from outcomes. Whether it's a relationship, a project, or a goal, remind yourself, this does not define me. You can still care deeply about something and still be whole if it doesn't work out. You are not your achievements, you are not your followers, your job title, the amount in your bank account, or especially someone else's opinion of you. And part of detachment is letting go of the need to be understood. Not everyone will get you, and that's okay. Your truth doesn't require a consensus to be valid. Let me repeat, your truth doesn't require a consensus to be valid. Emotional non-reactivity is another key. It means learning to pause before you respond, and I mean respond, not react. It's resisting the urge to clap back or defend yourself when triggered. It's choosing stillness instead of spiraling. Detachment allows you to be grounded through both the highs and the lows. It helps you stop chasing reassurance and instead become your own source of stability. And perhaps most importantly, detachment means releasing the illusion of control. You can't force people to change. You can't fast-track timing. You can't manipulate outcomes to bend to your expectations. But what you can control is how you show up, where you place your energy, and when it's time to walk away. It gets easier to cultivate your internal validation. The more you anchor into your own self-worth, the less you'll grasp for external approval. The less you'll chase people, attention, or affirmation. Ask yourself, what am I expecting others to give me that I could learn to give to myself? That question alone can shift everything. Sometimes detachment also means creating space, mentally, emotionally, even physically, so you can see clearly without the fog of over-identification. It's not cold or distant. It's clear, calm, and grounded. You can still care, you can still love, you can still dream, but you just don't cling anymore. That's when you know you're practicing true detachment, when your peace is no longer negotiable. And if you want to dive deeper into detachment, I highly recommend studying Stoicism or Taoism, two philosophies that have really helped me. If you've ever felt the pressure to explain yourself, prove yourself, or announce your next move just to feel like you're still in the game, you're not alone. We live in a time where being seen has become its own form of currency, and invisibility can feel like a failure. But I've come to learn that some of the most powerful growth happens quietly, off-grid, off-camera, in the stillness. And that doesn't make it less valuable, it makes it real. You don't need a standing ovation for every phase of your journey. You don't need to narrate your healing or declare your next reinvention in a highlight reel. You're allowed to keep things sacred. You're allowed to grow without broadcasting. You're allowed to become without explaining. Quiet confidence and moving in silence won't make you invisible. They'll make you undeniable when the time is right. And it will make you just a little bit mysterious too. It gives people something to ask you about the next time they see you in person instead of them knowing everything about your life from online posts. I hope you got a lot out of this video in learning the benefits of moving in silence and practicing quiet confidence. As always, it's a work in progress in my own life and a continual journey where I learn new things every day. If you're interested in the Airbnb I stayed in, the link is in the description, and no, this was not a sponsored post. Thank you for joining me today, and I wish you all the best. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, take care.